Welcome to the Positive Sports Podcast. I'll be your host this evening, Ed Montana. As you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm flying solo today. No Alex today, so you only get one half of the dynamic duo that is the Positive Sports Podcast team. First of all, it's Memorial Day weekend. So let me start off by saying thank you to all the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. This is the best country on the planet. I am forever grateful to be born here and to live here and to live this free life that we get to live here. And it's because of the efforts and the lives and sacrifices of those people that have fought for our freedom over many, many years. To you, I say thank you. To your families, I say thank you. And as an American, I say thank you very much. So, I'm sure everyone's enjoying the beautiful weather. The beautiful long weekend. I know I particularly enjoy it. I spent a lot of time out at the baseball fields with my son over the weekend as he had a tournament. It was very hot as it gets here in late May in Houston. But at the end of the day, it's fun. It's fun to be outside spending time with family and watching the boy play. So, what do we have going on in the world of sports? Well, first, let me start by saying, friend of the show, Juan the Kraken Adams has signed to fight Greg Hardy at UFC San Antonio on July 20th. We'll be talking more about that later. There's a little bit of a history there. Juan has been very outspoken of his dislike for Greg Hardy, both his off the field or out of the cage antics and the way he's been kind of given I won't say preferential treatment necessarily, but he has been treated well by the UFC. He gets paid a lot of money. He's not very experienced. He, quite frankly, isn't that good at this point. He's still a developing prospect in MMA, and yet he's been able to co-headline a couple of cards with the UFC, and they've given him relatively easy opponents, in my opinion. And a lot of people complain about it in the MMA community, but no one has complained about it or brought it to light more than Juan the Kraken Adams. He's been asking to fight the guy for a while. He will get his wish on July 20th in San Antonio. San Antonio, not that far from Houston. Kind of feels like I might have to make a road trip, but we'll see. More on that later on. Look, we finally wrapped up the NBA playoffs. We're now to the final stage. The NHL playoffs, they're no longer the playoffs. We're in the Stanley Cup Finals. Those start tonight. And it's going to be a fun couple of weeks of high-level sports with a lot at stake. The championship for both sports on the line this week. Let me start off with hockey. I know we don't talk a lot of hockey, but we have a very interesting matchup. The playoffs have been, even if you're not a hockey fan, the playoffs in hockey are so intense. Every game seems to be life or death. It doesn't matter. If a team gets up 2-0, it doesn't really seem to matter. The series can turn right away. There have been a couple of sweeps this year. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but the intensity of the games are such that every game is kind of its own movie, and you just don't know how it's going to play out. So even though a team may be up 2-0 and sometimes even 3-0, it's not uncommon for the other team to come back and grind out a win here and there and make it a series at the end of the day. We've got two teams in the Stanley Cup Finals, the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins. The St. Louis Blues are probably going to be the story in a way of this series. In January, they were the worst team in the NHL in January. They made a coaching change, and they turned things around. They still have a guy in Greg Berube, who is their head coach, with an interim tag on him. And he is not the head coach. He is literally coaching the last 7 games of his tenure with the St. Louis Blues. I'm sure they'll do something after the series, after the Stanley Cup Finals. But right now, he's the interim guy. It's not his job. He's just doing the best he can in this role for what seems to be a limited period of time. They played, these two teams actually played 40 some odd years ago, and this is the series where you have the famous diving Bobby Orr after he scored. And, it's kind of one of those old highlight replays that they show over and over again. They show it, especially like during the Stanley Cup Finals, they'll show, for nostalgia's sake, they'll show highlights of yesteryear. And that's one they always show. And it was Bobby Orr, a Boston Bruin, flying through the air after scoring a goal against the St. Louis Blues, and it was in the Stanley Cup Finals. Now look, that doesn't matter. These guys on the St. Louis Blues, most of them weren't even alive at the time. They're not seeking revenge for Bobby Orr flying through the air. But it does make for a nice story, and NBC will play it up quite a bit on the broadcast, and you'll see it a few times, I'm sure. The interesting thing about this St. Louis Blues team and Boston, really, they're both very hard-nosed, hard-driving teams. They're not going to try to finesse things. They're going to try to pound the puck into the offensive zone, pound shots at the goalies, and really try to tough it out in the corners, grind the other team until they get the good shots and they score. The interesting thing about St. Louis is they've got a rookie goaltender in Binnington who has never, obviously he's a rookie. He's never been in the playoffs before, but he's played very, very well. He's had a couple of rough starts here and there. He gave up 6 goals in a game early on, I think in the first round against Winnipeg, but other than that has been very solid. Now, how he handles the pressure of the Stanley Cup Finals, with a rookie, you just never know. It is kind of the one wild card, but he's played well. And in hockey, a lot of times, you can ride a hot goaltender a long way. And it seems like that's exactly what St. Louis has done. And they're going to try to ride it to get 4 more wins in the next 7 games and quite possibly lift Lord Stanley's trophy. On the other side, you've got a Boston Bruins team with a lot of experience in the Stanley Cup Finals. It's been a while since they won. The last time they won the Cup was in 2011. But all of this team is a team of grizzled veterans. They've got a lot of guys with Stanley Cup Finals experience. In fact, I think it's the exact opposite. If I'm not mistaken, there's only one player on the Boston Bruins who has not played in the Stanley Cup Finals, whereas St. Louis has only one player who has played in the Stanley Cup Finals. So the Bruins have the experience. They've got the pedigree. They know how to win. They've been here before. It'll be very interesting to see how that veteran leadership matches up with these St. Louis Blues who are really riding a hot wave. The other good thing about this series, these are the 2 hottest teams since mid-January. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're second and fourth in goal differential since the middle of January, which in hockey that's a long time if you think about it. It's not a short sample size. It's quite a bit, and they're the hottest teams. They're both riding hot goalies. Boston has Tuukka Rask, who is just the epitome of a hot goalie. They rode him in 2011. They're riding him again this year. When he's hot, he is insanely hot. He's got a 94% save percentage, which usually 90 is good, and when you're hot, you're at 92. He's at 94. So he's very much the wall back there for a veteran Boston team. They've got Zdeno Chara, who is 42 years old, still doing the damn thing. When you watch the games, if you don't know who he is, he's a guy that's about 1.5 feet taller than everybody else. He's 6'7", I think. It's ridiculous. He's a big dude, but it should be a very entertaining series. They are both, like I said, both very hard-nosed teams. I think you're going to see a very entertaining series. The playoffs in general, I think, have been pretty entertaining. There have been some sweeps in there, which generally sweeps are not entertaining, but there have been some unbelievable series. The San Jose Vegas series was quite interesting. Went 7 games. There have been, I want to say, 6 overtime games. 3 game 7s have gone into overtime. One or two of them went into double overtime. So it's been exciting. I know I have caught myself many an evening in the past few weeks just up watching hockey and enjoying it. One thing to look out for. This is a weird anomaly. I don't expect it to happen again, but if the trend holds, St. Louis fans are going to love this. The New York Islanders swept the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round of the playoffs. In the second round, they were swept by the Carolina Hurricanes. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Carolina Hurricanes were swept by the Boston Bruins. If the trend holds, St. Louis would sweep the Boston Bruins and win the Stanley Cup. I know St. Louis fans must love that. I don't think it's going to happen. That would be pretty neat to go from sweeping to being swept 3 times. But, hey, stranger things have happened, right? That's why we love sports. But I will be watching the series. I think it's going to be quite entertaining. Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk NBA. Hey, look, we're finally to the NBA Finals. The playoffs are a long, arduous process, and now we have our 2 teams. Early last week, the Golden State Warriors swept through the Portland Trail Blazers, and they are in the finals. That's not much of a surprise. We kind of expected that. On the other side, not exactly a huge surprise. The Toronto Raptors, who were the 2 seed, have taken care of the Milwaukee Bucks in 6, and they are going to the NBA Finals. So we're getting a Golden State and Toronto matchup. Let me start by previewing a little bit of the previous round. The Golden State Warriors swept through Portland without Kevin Durant, which has really kind of been the overriding story of these NBA playoffs over the last 2 weeks. You'll recall Kevin Durant went down in Game 5 in the series prior to the Portland series with a calf strain. The Warriors won that series. They were already up at the time, and they ended up winning that series against the Rockets to now going through and sweeping through Portland. Now, a lot's been made about, they've actually played better without Kevin Durant, and, there's been... this is one of the things that I kind of don't like about ESPN, to be frank. With so many sports channels, you got to find something to talk about. And it's been disrespectful, for lack of a better word. It's been disrespectful. It's been disrespectful to Kevin Durant. It's been disrespectful to the Warriors. It's been disrespectful in general. This entire conversation about Kevin Durant and, the Warriors don't need him. And they've even even the media has asked Kevin Durant questions referring to the Warriors as them as opposed to us. It's been insulting, in my opinion. Kevin Durant is one of the top 5 players, top 3 players, top 2, maybe the top player. I don't know. He's in the top 5. And to talk about him as though he's not needed is insulting to him. And quite frankly, it's insulting to the rest of the Warriors, right? Like, it almost diminishes what they have done. Like, look, Steph Curry is an all-star, one of the greats of the game right now in his own right. Draymond Green is an all-star. Klay Thompson is a fantastic player. They still have a very, very talented team. Part of the reason why we thought they were going to run away with the West, and part of the reason most people pick them to be in the NBA Finals, is because the rest of those guys are so talented. And so to speak about them as though what they're doing is, pointless or not very good, or it's disrespectful. I mean, I truly don't have another word for it. And it's just, to me, it's just the media trying to stir the pot, the media trying to create a story, the media trying to diminish the value of players and create a schism between Durant and the rest of his teammates. It's insulting. This Warriors team won before without Kevin Durant. They won with Kevin Durant. It is a Herculean effort to win an NBA championship at any point. To win it without a superstar, to win it with your superstar, to whatever. It's insulting that they have chosen to play this up in the media. and really not give the remaining Warriors any credit, in my opinion, for doing what they've done without Kevin Durant. They're very good, and they should get all the credit in the world. And, part of the reason they should get the credit is not just because they don't have Kevin Durant out there, but it does. It changes the dynamic of the team, and to have to change the way you played for 82 games all of a sudden here in the pressure cooker that is the playoffs, it's commendable. It's commendable on Steve Kerr's part to continue to move the pieces in the right way to make them a successful team. Hats off to the Portland Trail Blazers. I think they had a great season. I don't think anyone expected them in the Western Conference Finals. And quite frankly, I think what we saw by the time we got to the Western Conference Finals was a team that just simply ran out of gas. They just seemed to get tired. They built up considerable leads in 3 of the 4 games, and they squandered them away. And to me, that's a sign of a team that's mentally fatigued and maybe physically fatigued as well. And they just couldn't do it. But I think it's a great experience for them. They're going to get better, I believe, as time goes on. Damian Lillard continues to get better. McCollum is getting better. He played very well against the Warriors. Those 2 guys will continue to lead that franchise and hopefully turn the corner, maybe add a piece here or there. Who knows how that will work out for them. But they could be a serious threat to the Warriors in the future. You just got to keep moving forward. And then over in the East, really, what can you say about Kawhi Leonard? Just a fantastic effort throughout the playoffs, but especially in that Milwaukee series. We think of him as a great offensive player, but really I think where he earned his stripes or where he really impressed me was they matched him up on defense with Giannis. And I won't even try to say his last name. And I hear it all the time, and I still can't say it. And he basically clamped down Giannis. He really made it difficult for him, forced the Bucks to try to win the game with Chris Middleton and Bledsoe, and those guys just didn't have a very good series. They just could not get enough scoring from other people. I think Giannis at one point, in one game, was held down to 12 points. So really, Kawhi Leonard did an incredible job. I think most of us kind of forgot how good that guy is. He played so sparingly last year. He was out with that injury for most of the year. He played so little that I think we didn't realize just how good he was, or is apparently. And he proved it against Philadelphia. He proved it against again against Milwaukee. He's really been impressive. It's funny. He's also in a situation where he could walk, and we don't hear nearly as much about him walking as we do about Kevin Durant. And I'm glad. I'm glad that the media, on this side at least, has chosen to focus on just what an outstanding basketball player he is, how he's come back from injury, and led a team, of guys that it takes some time to gel, and he's done it pretty quickly with this team, and he's led them through the playoffs. He led them against the most difficult challenge, which was Giannis and the Bucks, and really put the team on his back. He has been an all-star through and through, and really has done just an amazing job offensively, but especially defensively. I thought that was the game changer. That series was 2-0 going to Toronto from Milwaukee, and then they had that game 3 that Toronto pulled it out in overtime, but didn't look terribly impressive. So they were down 2-1 after game 3, and it looked like, wow, how they can barely win at home. It looks like Milwaukee's going to take care of them. And then they made that defensive switch, put Kawhi Leonard on Giannis more, and he really clamped down, and the series completely turned right there, and they ended up winning 3 more games after that and winning the series in 6. It was quite impressive. And, when you really stop and think about it, they ripped off 4 straight wins against the Bucks, which the Bucks had a pretty good season. I don't think they had very many 4-game losing streaks in there. So they're doing something right. It'll be an interesting matchup with them and the Warriors. One more thing before we get off the Eastern Conference Finals, and I guess this kind of goes into what will be the NBA Finals conversation. Hey, look. I like Drake just as much as everybody else. But can the guy please sit down and get off the court? Stop with the massages. Stop with the trolling. Just stop. Just stop it. And quite frankly, ESPN or TNT or whoever's got that game, get the camera off the guy. Just stop it. I want to watch the basketball game. I'm not interested in Drake jumping up and down like an idiot and, massaging the Raptors head coach, massaging his shoulders during a timeout or whatever he was doing. Just cut it out. It's just not necessary. There's plenty of entertainment. The basketball is great. The intensity of the game is fantastic. You got all these replay angles and interviews with coaches during breaks, and there's so much going on. I am enjoying the basketball immensely. I don't need to see Drake. I just don't. I didn't like it when the camera spent so much time on Spike Lee in New York back in the day when he was much more of a active participant in the basketball game. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. I don't need it. I just don't need it. The games are fabulous. Show me more Kawhi. Show me what he's doing. Break down what he's doing with Giannis on defense. I don't care. Give me more basketball. The basketball has been fantastic. Give me less Drake. And Drake, stop it. Stop. The other interesting thing, when we're talking about celebrities here, the other interesting thing actually happened in Milwaukee, where there was a bit of a beer chugging contest between, I forget the guy's name, a defensive lineman, I believe, from the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers, and then Christian Yelich of the Brewers got in on it. Look, I'm not a big beer chugger either. I love beer. I can drink quite a bit of beer. I'm good with that. But look, you're getting those watered down beers from the taps at the stadium. It wasn't like a can of Miller Lite or whatever. It's the watered down stuff. If you can't chug that, tap out before you even start, right? Like when the camera comes to you. So just to reset this, the linebacker from the Packers, apparently he does this at the games all the time. He slammed one and then slammed another one. And of course, they got him on the Jumbotron and the crowd goes nuts and all that stuff, which is great. I love it. Fantastic. Then they come over to Aaron Rodgers. He happens to have a beer in his hand. He decides he's going to give it a go. Now look, Aaron Rodgers is a grown-ass man. At this point in his life, he knows whether he can chug a beer or not, right? I'm damn near 50. I know that I can chug one of those beers. Now, I couldn't chug a 40-ounce of malt liquor, but I could chug one of those 12-ounce watered-down Miller Lites that you get at an arena. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers did not know this about himself. But if you can't, which I can't imagine he didn't know this, apparently he's more of a wine sipper than he is a beer chugger. Hey, right there, when the Jumbotron comes to you, just wave. Just say hi. That's it, man. Don't embarrass yourself trying to drink it and then quit halfway through. At that point, look, Aaron Rodgers went to college. I went to college. There's a trick here, right? We've all, in college, you've partaken of a beverage here or there. You've had some beer chugging races. You spill that, right? Like you just drink it so fast it comes running out the sides and down your shirt. You spill it, but you don't stop halfway through. You go Stone Cold Steve Austin, you get like 2 drops of beer in your mouth and the rest all over your face, but hey, you chugged it, right? Come on, Aaron Rodgers. You can't do that. Yeah, I actually lost respect for the guy. And then, to make matters worse, they go back to the Packers linebacker. He chugs another one. Next to him happens to be Christian Yelich, who has a beer in hand. Now, he does it right. Because, and I don't know that he knew if he could chug a beer or not, but he stood up, raised his glass, got the fans going, got everyone all excited, and then chugged his beer. And to be fair, I think he spilled some of it, right? He went the stone cold route. He kind of tipped it a little too fast so that he spilled some of it, didn't have to drink it all. But at the end of the day, he got the whole thing down. And then, to make matters worse, now you got Aaron Rodgers going, yeah, but his beer wasn't full. He's kind of pointing at his beer, insinuating that it. Look, Drake and Aaron Rodgers, do not go to games and get on the Jumbotron anymore, please. Go watch the game at home. Get your own little snacks. Right? Aaron, you can get your glass of Merlot. Drake, you can have all the popcorn you want at home. You can get yourself one of those massaging chairs. But just stay off the Jumbotron, fellas. Stay off the Jumbotron. Unfortunately, I think we're going to get more Drake in the playoffs because obviously Toronto advanced, but no more beer chugging contests. Unfortunately, that was fun, but we're not going to get any more of those. I don't know what goes on in Oakland at Golden State games. I think the only fan stuff that we see at Golden State games is the picture of the Currys, right? Every time Steph makes a big shot, they got to show us the parents. That one I was not too bothered by, where they showed the Currys during the game, because obviously Seth Curry played on the Trailblazers, Steph on the Warriors. There was a little bit of a brotherly game going on. And I thought it was super cool. Hey, look, as a parent, you don't have a favorite. I've got 3 kids. I don't have a favorite kid. I love them all to death. They're all different. I do different things with different ones, right? I don't interact with them the same way. I don't enjoy them the same way. They're just different people, right? And so, but I love them to death. I love them all the same. I wish nothing but success for all 3 of them to the nth degree. I want them to be insanely successful. The Currys are being watched as their 2 sons are playing on opposing sides, and I thought it was pretty cool. One day, so the dad wore the first game. I don't remember how this went, but they each wore a kid's jersey, and then the next game they switched, and they kept going back and forth during the 4 games, so that they showed that they were rooting for both of them. And I'm sure it had to be very difficult. As a parent, I can't imagine if I had 2 of my kids in the NBA Finals or the Western Conference Finals. I mean, what do? You root like hell for both of them, and I guess you're going to be happy for one of them, and you're going to be sad for the other. There's just nothing you can do about it. It's the way it's going to be. There's no ties here. This isn't soccer, so that's the way it's going to shake out. But Thanksgiving dinner at the Currys will be quite interesting come November. So, there you go. All the crazy storylines of what goes on in the NBA Finals or in the NBA Conference Finals. Now we've got the matchup. Finally, we're to the NBA Finals. It's going to be the middle of June before we're done. It takes a while. Look, I don't see how the Warriors lose this. I really don't. The Raptors have had a much tougher road. The Warriors are a team chock full of stars. Klay Thompson did not make the All-NBA team. He didn't make the first, second, or third All-NBA team, which I think is ridiculous. I don't understand. I can't name 6 guards that are better than Klay Thompson. I think it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And they do it by position. So I don't get it. I don't get it. I looked at the chart of who were on the All-NBA teams and and saw some of the votes. I don't get it. There's in the conversation for center, I think Jokic was the first team and Joel Embiid was the second team. And I don't even remember who the third team guy was. But someone actually voted for that guy to be the All-NBA center, like the first team center. That guy needs to have his voting thing revoked. There were a couple guys that voted for James Harden to be not even in the top 4. That guy, there were 3 guys, I believe, who gave James Harden third team votes. There are not 4 better guards than James Harden. It's just ridiculous. Those guys should have their votes stripped from them. And one of those 3 guys is probably one of the guys that voted didn't put Jokic or Embiid 1 or 2. Crazy. But it happens. Anyway, back to the NBA Finals. The Warriors are just stacked. They've been here before. They know how this story goes. Steve Kerr, I think, is an unbelievable head coach in terms of X's and O's. And they have a lot of superstars. And it doesn't matter which one you stuff. The other ones are going to come through. This isn't the Milwaukee Bucks. This isn't stop Giannis and hope that Bledsoe and Middleton aren't as good. That's not going to happen here. You go ahead and try to shut down one of those guys. Go ahead and try to shut down Curry and see what Klay Thompson and Draymond Green do to you. You go ahead and try to stop Klay Thompson and see what Curry does to you. I mean, it's a tough road to hoe for the Raptors. And on the other side, Giannis is very good offensively. He's still growing defensively. And the Bucks in general just really didn't have an answer for Kawhi Leonard. The Warriors do. They're going to put Draymond Green on Kawhi Leonard, and it's going to be a different game for him. Draymond Green is going to wear Leonard out on both ends of the court. And if Kyle Lowry doesn't step up big time against those guards, both on the offensive and defensive ends of the floor, they're in trouble. The only place where the Raptors can really give the Warriors a hard time is with Gasol. Gasol has to have an amazing series, both offensively and defensively, for them to be in the series with the Warriors. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a quick one. I'm picking the Warriors in 5, and man, I wouldn't be surprised to see them sweep them. Now, one bit of news as far as the health update, Kevin Durant is out for Game 1, which is not until Thursday. But remember, the finals are kind of spread out. To be fair, all of the NBA playoffs are pretty spread out. So, we don't know what's, he may be back for Game 2, he may not. And even if he is back, he's been out for a bit. It's a lot of days off. Sometimes your cardio isn't quite there to deal with the rigors of a very intense NBA Finals game. So he may not be quite up to snuff, but they've proven they can do it without him. They're an extremely talented team, and they will be ready to go, firing on all cylinders. This will be their 4th NBA championship in 5 years if they win. They've really built it's a dynasty. By today's standards, certainly it's a dynasty, and it's been fun to watch. They're a fun team to watch. I find myself very entertained watching them play. I almost find myself rooting for them just because it's so much fun. In that Portland series, down big at halftime and every game seeming to come back and come back and come back. It's entertaining. For the casual like myself who doesn't have a dog in the fight, it is very entertaining. So that's what we have going on there. Baseball is almost a third of the way done now, I guess. I guess we're about 50 games in. Let me check and see. I think we're about 50 games in. 55 maybe. Let's see. Yeah, 53, 54, 52. Yeah, somewhere around there. So we're about 53 games in. Interesting stuff. I think it's playing out a lot like we had expected throughout the leagues. There'll be some interesting races, but I think when it's all said and done, we've already got some big leads. Philadelphia and Atlanta look like they're going to fight it out in the East. Chicago, Milwaukee are going to fight it out in the Central. The Dodgers are already up a good 7.5 games. The Yankees and Tampa Bay are close up at the top. Boston's lagging a little bit. Their slow start hurt them for sure, but they're starting to rise through the East. The one surprise I will say, not that they're leading, but by how much they're leading. Minnesota is up 10.5 on the Indians. Now, mind you, the Indians have had a lot of injuries, but Minnesota's played very good baseball. So that's going to be interesting to watch through the summer. And then out west, the Astros really look like the class of the West. The A's are making a push here. Recently, they've been playing better ball, but still 6.5 games. The Rangers are a bit of a surprise to me. They're playing better than I had expected, but that sure looks like the Astros division to lose. They are cruising along, but it's early. We still have about 2/3 of the season left, so we got a ways to go. But it should be interesting to see the rest of the way. Well, when you only get one voice, these things go a lot faster. There's no one to bounce these crazy ideas off of. I'd be very curious to hear what my brother has to say about Aaron Rodgers and Drake. Those fools. Please, ESPN. I think ESPN has the finals. No more shots of Drake. I don't care what he's doing. I don't care if he's giving the Raptors coach a pedicure. I don't want to see Drake. Show me more basketball. Talk to me more about basketball. Stop talking to me about all that other garbage. Stick to basketball. Well, that's it. With that, we've come to the end of another wonderful episode of the Positive Sports Podcast. My shout out goes to all of the families and all of the people who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Again, like I started off the show, I do not forget, and I am eternally grateful for all of your sacrifices and all of your efforts to allow us the freedom to live the lives we live in this country. This is the greatest country on the planet, bar none, and we owe that to the sacrifices of those men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice for us. And so my shout out goes out to them on this special Memorial Day. That's all I have. That should wrap up episode 76 of the Positive Sports Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to the show via email at positivesports10@gmail.com, positivesports10@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of me, you can do so via Twitter at eMontana21. If you want to get a hold of Alex, you can reach him on Twitter as well at BrooklynGaucho1. I'm pretty sure he's out of jail, Twitter jail, so he's good to go. But as he would always tell you, email the show. Email the show at positivesports10@gmail.com. Positivesports10@gmail.com. As always, folks, ignore the negativity. Be the positivity. Peace.